The last thing that I want to speak about is exam technique. So everything that I've spoken to you about before this has been all the work that you've been doing in the lead up to the HSC examination. And the HSC examination in legal studies is a 3-hour exam, and it's divided into 3 sections. Section 1 is 20 multiple choice questions based on the crime and human rights topics. There are 15 crime questions and there are 5 human rights questions, and they're intermingled. This is worth 20 marks, and it should take you around about 30 minutes to actually complete this section. Many students, however, find that they can complete these questions in less time, and then that allows them more time to spend on the extended response parts of the HSC examination. Section 2 is made up of 2 particular parts. Part A are the short answer questions, and they're based on the human rights topic. Part B is an extended response question based on the crime topic. Both of these are worth 15 marks. Section 3 of the paper is based on 2 extended response questions, each from a different option that you've studied. And it should take you about 45 minutes each for these particular extended responses. The first thing that you'll be required to do once you get into the examination is that you will have 5 minutes reading time. And you need to make sure that you use this time wisely and work out what is best for you. So from your trial examinations, from just sitting sample papers, work out what would be the best way that you could actually spend this particular time. One of the suggestions that I make is that you actually read from the back of the paper. So the first thing you do is that you read your focus area questions, your extended response questions from the options. So my students would turn to the back of the paper. They would read both of the world order questions and decide which one they're doing. They would flick through to the family section. They would read both of the family questions and decide which one of those they're going to do. Then they would read the crime question. Then I encourage them to read the human rights questions, the short answer questions, and then I encourage them to go to the front of the paper and begin by reading the multiple choice questions and to start doing the multiple choice questions in their head. During the exam, the first thing that I would encourage you to do is on the very front of the examination paper, I would work out how much time you're going to spend on each question. So I would allocate time. So if the HSC is a morning exam, you're going to be able to start writing at 9:30. And so on the front of your page, then work out how long are you going to spend on the multiple choice questions. So the board says to spend 30 minutes. If you're going to do that, then I would put 9:30 to 10 a.m. next to the multiple choice questions. I would then put a heading short answer questions, and they should take about 25 minutes. So I'd put 10 o'clock to 10:25 for those. The crime essay, because this is only a 15-mark response, then it should take about 35 minutes. So therefore, I would be putting down 10:25 to 11 o'clock. My first option essay should take about 45 minutes, so that will take from 11 o'clock to 11:45, and then my option 2 essay will take from 11:45 to 12:30. Now, that's one way in which you can tackle the paper. There are other ways that you may choose to do that. And again, every time you do a practice paper, do it in a different order to find out what actually works for you. But the most important thing is to make sure that you work consistently across the paper, keeping to your set times. Now, because in the reading time you've already done some of the multiple choice questions in your head, that's why I often say to students, start with the multiple choice and start by doing those particular questions, because once you look at the question, the answer is automatically going to come to you, and that's going to be a quick way that you can do maybe 5 or 6 multiple choice questions, and that will save you time later on in the paper. So in terms of those multiple choice questions, the most important thing is to read the question carefully. Try to answer the question without looking at the choices. Then you need to choose the correct answer and mark it on the answer sheet. The most important thing, never ever leave out a multiple choice question. If you don't know the answer, then have a go. You've got a 1 in 4 chance of getting the correct answer. If you're still unsure, you still need to have a go at it, and then you need to mark it on your paper so it will remind you to go back a little bit later on if you've got time and then you can have another go at that particular question. Don't leave it out just in case you don't get to go back to it. And also, if you leave it out, it could well be that you'll move on to the next question, but put the answer in the wrong part of the multiple choice answer sheet. And that will be disastrous once you get to the last question and find that you've got a spot, but you have no question. In terms of the short answer questions in relation to human rights, there'll be 3 or 4 questions, and they're worth 15 marks in total. So this, as I said, should take about 25 minutes. You need to make sure again that you read the question carefully and underline the key concepts. Follow the directional term. Make sure that if the question says outline, you sketch in general terms. If the question says evaluate, it means you need to make a judgment based on criteria. So it's important that you do what the question says. You need to answer in the space provided. And generally, the amount of space that's provided is enough for you to be able to be awarded full marks. So you need to use up all the space. You need to directly answer the question, and remember, only use mark-attracting facts. No general information. Get straight into answering the question. No introductions, no conclusions are needed with these particular questions. And always support with examples. Sometimes if you make a general comment, but you support with an example, you can turn that then into a specific fact. The most important thing here is that these are only marked once. So don't give the marker any excuse not to give you full marks. In terms of Section 2, Part B, that is the crime extended response. Now, this is worth 15 marks, and it should take you about 35 minutes to do this. If you've been able to spend a little bit less time on the multiple choice questions, maybe you can spend a little bit more time on this particular question, but no more than 40 minutes. The board expects that you write about 600 words for this particular response, and so this is the equivalent of around about 4 to 5 pages or 1.5 to 2 Board of Studies writing booklets. You need to write in essay format. You need to read the question carefully, and remember, always plan your response. The expectation here is that you should be able to write about 3 particular concepts, and you really need to nail this question. This question is often the question that will be the discriminator on the paper. This is where students will earn their Band 6. The emphasis here is on quality and directly answering the question. Section 3 is the options part of the question. This is where you have to write 2 extended responses, each from a different option. Now, the most important thing here is that you only do questions from the options that you've studied in class. Far too often we see students who decide that they will opt to do a different question from something that they haven't studied, and as a result their marks are very poor. So make sure that you do a question related to the options that you've studied. These are worth 25 marks each, and as a result you need to spend at least 45 minutes per question. And again, if you've been able to spend less time on the core part of the paper, you might have a little bit more time that you can spend on questions here. One of the things that I've learnt from marking HSC this year is that it's really, really important that you label the question clearly. You get a choice of an A or a B question, and you need to be clear to the marker which question you are answering. So make sure on the front of the booklet you indicate, is this 27A or is it 27B? And also, before you begin writing your question, your response, make sure that you also indicate whether it's an A or a B response. Now, these particular extended responses should be the equivalent of round about 1,000 words. So that is around about 8 pages or 2 to 3 Board of Studies writing booklets. I would suggest in these responses that you write about 4 to 5 concepts. Again, you need to plan your response. You need to write legibly. And so this is part of the reason why I always encourage my students throughout the year to handwrite their practice essays. You need to get used to writing for 3 hours. Again, you need to read the question carefully and read it again before you begin to plan and write your response. After the examination, it's over. Don't overanalyse it. You either get ready for the next exam or you celebrate because this could be your last exam. Just like to point out some useful resources that will be available to you. So the first thing is to look at past HSC papers and examiners' comments, and you can get access to these from the Board of Studies website. So each year after the HSC examination is over, senior markers will formulate a series of examiners' comments where they will be able to give an indication to you as to what have been the elements of a strong response and what have been the elements of a weak response. So I'd encourage you to look at those and take that information on board when you're formulating your own responses. The other thing is that the Board of Studies has also published some legal studies workbooks from 2011, 2012, and there'll also be a workbook published from the 2013 HSC examinations. So these contain exemplar responses. These are responses where students have received full marks, and you can look at those and it will give you an idea as to the standard that you need to write to be able to write a 15 out of 15 response or a 25 out of 25 response. You can purchase these yourself, or better still, ask your school librarian to purchase them. Just a word of warning in terms of HSC papers. Because this is just a recent syllabus, the HSC has only been based on this particular syllabus since 2011. So I would encourage you to simply look at the HSC papers from 2011 onwards. Something else that you might like to think about is to attend a Legal Studies HSC study day. Now, two of these that operate each year. One is run by the Legal Studies Association in Sydney, and the other one is run by the Hunter Region Legal Studies Teachers Association, and that's held at Maitland each year as well. All students aim to achieve a Band 6, and that's something which is attainable for quite a lot of students, but a Band 6 must be earned. It's the result of hard work. It's the result of working consistently throughout the year. It's not necessarily the domain of the brightest student. To get that Band 6, you need to organise, summarise, revise and practice, and work continuously throughout the year. So I'd like to wish you all the best in the upcoming HSC examination.